Hello, everybody. I am back. Tony Andrews here to discuss clinical chaplaincy. And today I just want to take a few moments to talk about the book by Anton Boisen, Exploration into the Inner World. And what I'm about to do is just share some um, highlights. Wherever I put a star and an underline, I just want to share with you regarding that. For some reason, it may have it caught my attention. So let's discuss a little bit about Anton Boisen. And I'm reading from the chapter, The Distinctive Task of the Minister of Religion. And so I'll just begin and just kind of hear what Anton Boisen was talking about and how I interpret it and what it means for us today in clinical chaplaincy, and especially in the healthcare setting. I have highlighted here, looking at the minister of religion from the standpoint of those who are facing the issues of spiritual life and death and have been thereby cut loose from the moorings of conventional belief. We are asking what insights and what expertness the minister of religion can bring to the problem which they represent. We are inquiring where his help is needed most and where he can spend his time to best advantage. So I wanted to talk about, I have highlighted, or I have a note here that says something about the chaplain in this context has something to give, has something to do. Anton Boisen was asking us to help people with problems and help resolve problems. And that's why I've mentioned in other videos, Anton Boisen says the work that we do is that of a psychiatrist, and we are engaged in psychotherapeutic work. Again, in healthcare chaplaincy generally, and I will clearly state that most of my experiences have been in low-level trauma centers, community-based hospitals. And in my clinical training, as some of you, if you looked at my other videos, I have 3 units of taken with ACPE and 1 unit of CPSP. And the major difference is what I felt. And again, this could be supervisor specific, even though I had 2 different ACPE supervisors, and I've had 1 CPSP supervisor. So I've got a kind of a two orientations to ACP supervisors and just 1 to CPSP at the time. What we're basically taught generally in hospitals is this ministry of presence and to be a sounding board for patients, to help them coping and healing, the hoping and I'm sorry, interrupted. Hoping and coping during their time in the hospital. And we're constantly trying to figure out what their resources are out of the hospital. Do they have a good image of God? And do they have a resource in the faith community? But CPSP or Anton Boisen, Anton Boisen says, no, we're there to help people in their problems. When they ask for us and when we're called to do work, we're called there to do something, to help people in their problems. We are their primary resource. You know, I've often heard, even from a couple colleagues, when I talk about what I think that we as clinical chaplains should be doing in the hospital, and generally my language is there. My language is of being more psychotherapeutic, being psychodynamic. And they said, well, you just can't open them up and leave them there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So this was often the talk. You can't open a person up and then can't mend them back. And my argument is, if you're doing your work right, if you're competent, the patient is opening themselves up, right? They're opening themselves up. And if you're using empathetic statements and, as Freud says, listen and make connections, and you're just repeating things back to them, you're not opening them up. They're opening themselves up, and you're helping them to make connections, to identify themes, behaviors, and incongruencies in their behaviors and what they're saying to you. And you're doing this with a focus and a purpose to help them see themselves more clearly, and hopefully to help resolve any type of distress or issue that they may be suffering, or what they wanted to share with you in the first place. So you're actually doing something. You're dynamic, you're proactive, you're engaged. You're not this mystical ministry of presence, which is the foundation of care. And Rogerian, being empathetic and just repeating back, that is foundational. That is at the low level. That is what's needed to build upon everything else. And so clinical chaplains who are just there to help people cope, well, help people solve their issue, not just cope, because you just help them cope. And it's just, matter of fact, look at the Geico commercials. And as I presented my model of chaplaincy to my CEO, look at that Geico commercial about that lady walking through the warehouse with a Geico agent, and she's pretty stressed out, right? And so she has these different people following her, like a harpist, and then then some, from Sweden, those long things, ooh, they make that sound, trying to relieve her stress, right? And then the Geico agent is actually there solving her problems, getting rid of her stress, not covering up the stress. Because what happens when the music stops playing? She still has the stress, right? And I've always said that's what chaplains in a healthcare settings are typically doing. They're just temporarily making them feel better. Help them solve their problems, their issues. Just letting them talk is very therapeutic, and that's all that's needed. I understand that, but there's also a lot of things that they're telling you, that they're telling you for a reason. For instance, there's a gentleman telling me about how about his faith and his religion, and telling me all the good times and contacts that he made that made him feel good, but during the whole conversation, or not the whole conversation, but as I was listening, there were times when I was asking myself, what is he trying to tell me in this story? What is he communicating to me that he wants me to hear, what he wants me to understand about? And even though it was cut short, but I did see a theme within his story about his contacts with this certain person. But he also got teared up when acts of compassion were given to him. And some of his backstory was about having a very abusive grandmother, very strict, and all this other kind of stuff. Even though we got interrupted and I couldn't get back to him, there was a point there that if he was a constant client of mine, I'd want to understand more about what it meant to receive compassion. There was a wound there. There's wounds there that I would like to focus more on with him. But even though we're cut short, because you know how it is in the healthcare setting, he really appreciated it, and he goes really thought that he felt understood and heard by the end of our conversation. But so what I'm saying is the minister actually should be doing something, as Anton Boisen said. Talking about John Bunyan, they are clearly related to those through which such men as John Bunyan and George Fox passed in the process of finding themselves. They are also related to those eruptive solutions of inner conflicts which are known as religious conversion experiences. I would draw a vertical rather than a horizontal line. Instead of allowing the psychiatrist to remain the exclusive keeper of the lower regions, I am hoping and laboring for the day when the specialist in religion will be able to, with his help, to go down to the depths of the grim abyss after those who are capable of responding, those in whom some better self is seeking to come to birth. Come on. Anton Boisen, he's saying he longs for the day. He longs for the day that the minister can go down to the depths, the grim of depths, like that of psychiatrists. That is the work that we should be doing. Helping people in their problems. Now, again, he's really talking, well, I'm not going to say what he's talking about, but his context is mental hospitals. But in the general hospitals, there's still work that can be done that could really be helping solving problems as well. So I'm reading this for anyone who's engaged in clinical chaplain, who's taken CPE now. Press your supervisor. Say you want more psychodynamic, you want training, you want more books on psychotherapy and things like object relations theory, attachment theory, all of these theories that pertain to the development of the personality. That's what you should be asking for, so anyways. The acute disturbance, which I am especially concerned, are the other hand comparable to the breaking open of the abyss or the abscess. The poisonous matter is already out and no lancing is necessary. What is needed is to give the recuperative forces a chance by restoring the shaken self-confidence and helping the patient to a constructive interpretation of his experience. Between my own techniques and those of the psychiatrist, I recognize no particular difference. I do indeed make use of prayer whenever I believe that the patient wants it or is likely to respond. See, that is number one, again, powerful. Anton Boisen is calling the clergy for such deeper training than this, what we're getting generally and being, asked to do in the hospitals. And the use of prayer. I took this palliative care course in University of California, Cal State, California, or Cal State San Marcos, the palliative care thing. And we were having to do case studies. And a majority, if not all of those who provided case studies, they're always praying, always praying. And I believe that many chaplains pray because they don't know what else to do. They don't even know what they're doing in their encounters. They have no focus. They don't know what they're listening to. They're just being that presence. So let me put a pin in that. So many of my videos from here on out that you'll hear, it's like, Tony, you're really, I don't want to use the word negative, but I am pushing against the norm of what's out there, right? Generally the norm that's being practiced out there. So I'm not a negative person or a Debbie Downer. I'm just pointing out basically the displeasure of kind of what we're doing as chaplains and the call to deeper work. And so again, for those who are new or searching for CPE, I'm letting you know what to look for. All right. What else do I have highlighted here? I don't have my glasses, can't find them. I think it's also what my psychoanalytic friends are groping after when they talk about breaking up the superego. I thus try to help the sufferer to get rid of his fears and of his sense of estrangement and to develop a philosophy of life which will enable him to cope with the instinctual drives and bring them into harmony with his ideals. I try to get rid get him to see that no matter how unworthy one may have been, he is a good man and is worthy of honor insofar that he is earnestly seeking to become better. Again, more language of going deep, more language of helping people to actually get better, right? He will have those whose beliefs have suffered some degree of distortion as a means of let me start over. He will have those whose beliefs have suffered some degree of distortion as a means of escaping the sense of personal failure. Persons who attempt to maintain their loyalties without paying the price of growth, and to this end, resort to all sorts of compromises and protective devices, like defense mechanisms. How many of you in CPE have been taught defense mechanisms, primary defense mechanisms, and there's mature defense mechanisms? How many of you are being taught that? And if someone's using a defense mechanism, how do you know how to confront that? Because when you're able to confront it in a gentle way, in a curious way, you get behind the issues. You start touching the issues behind that defense mechanism. And so when I train, about every 3 units, I reintroduce the defense mechanisms. He will have those who make no pretense at conforming to the faith of their fathers and yet are comfortable about it. Okay, one more. I think I'll do one more. How far it will be worthwhile for the minister to attempt this will depend largely upon his own qualifications. A distinguished psychoanalyst, when asked what type of cases he would be willing to undertake, I replied, I will take anyone with whom I can establish a transference. The principle applies also to the minister. If he is one who is able to win the respect and the affection of the delinquent and the roughneck, interesting language, roughneck or of the social rebel of whatever variety, he can get results. But let him be aware of trying to masquerade as a sheep in wolf's clothing. In the case of delinquent, he is certainly not going to raise the boy to a higher level, so on and so forth. So again, as I end this briefly on this chapter, Anton Boisen wanted to train clergy to be that of a psychiatrist. Okay? We were meant to do effective work. We're not, yes, there's a role we play in being a sounding board. I get that. But we are called to help people solve problems. Not all of us who are taking CPE are going in the healthcare system or in a general hospital that the person's we're trying to get out within 2 or 3 days. Some of you are in retirement homes. Some of you are in mental hospitals or mental wards in a regular hospital. I would demand more. I would get more training. Quit reading chaplain material. Start getting into psychotherapy material, psychology material, books on psychotherapy and different things. Go that route. Because all the healthcare stuff is just talking about models and methods and stuff. Get the competency. Get the competencies. The other stuff will come. You will be able to leverage your competencies to what the hospital needs you to do. Right? So anyways, it was good to discuss with you again today about clinical chaplaincy, Anton Boisen, and the distinctive task of the minister of religion. So as I sign off today, do the work.